Hi everybody, it's Sarah Crave with Let's Make Art, and today we are going to paint this darling winter night scene.
Ah.
We have these cute little frame ornaments for sale. Some of you have probably already bought some, which is awesome. And so I just wanted to come up with some really cute projects that you can paint for a loved one or even yourself to put on your Christmas tree. There's nothing wrong with celebrating yourself.
Love it.
Okay, this one is actually super beginner friendly and fairly quick. So I love showing you guys really easy projects that you can just jump right into and not have to spend hours and hours painting. For this project, we're gonna be doing it in 5 steps. So our very first step is we're gonna do our sky and sprinkle in some salt. Our second step is we're gonna do our background foliage. Our third step is we're gonna do our foreground trees. Our fourth step is we'll do some shadows. And then our very last step is we're gonna splatter some snow.
All right,
That's
piece
it.
of cake.
Now, the reference here I painted a little bit larger so you guys could see it, but I'm going to be painting it even smaller to go in our super tiny one. So this one right here is a 3.5 by 3.5. This is a 2.5 by 2.5.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Let's do our oath and get to painting. So if you can raise your right hand and repeat after me, I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
Promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
Promise to have fun.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Step 1, our sky. So for our sky, I'm just going to mix a little bit of indigo with phthalo, and that's the color I'm going to use for the sky. Now, why am I mixing these colors? Sometimes I feel like indigo leans more gray blue, and phthalo is too bright of a blue, so I mix those colors together. But if you have a color that you like, that you think does a good blue sky, like kind of that evening sky color, go for it. All right. So here I have my crazy palette. I really should wash it soon. I'm going to mix some indigo and some phthalo. Okay. I'm just wiping this off because as you can see, I have bleed-proof white splattered on here. And when you get bleed-proof white mixed in with any mixture, it makes it opaque. And so I need to wipe off that bleed-proof white. Okay. That should be better. So I'm going to start at the top. Also, I'm not painting edge to edge. I'm letting there be kind of like this uneven kind of rough texture. So using a round 6, I'm just going to start by putting in the top, and I'm just going to go back and forth, not all the way to the taped edge. I'm going to rinse my brush so it's just water, and from where I left off, I'm going to go about 2/3 of the way down. Okay? That's it.
Easiest sky you've ever painted.
Yeah, if you want it to be even darker, like obviously a night scene, you can do one more layer while it's wet. And now we're just going to sprinkle in some salt. Now we're going to do step 2. We're going to do our background trees. Now this is foliage we're putting in on the horizon line. And the horizon line is basically where the sky and the ground meet. Okay? So along that horizon line, I'm going to grab a tiny bit of green. So I'm going to mix some phthalo with my Q gold to get a green. And then to kind of like tone down the green, I'm going to add some indigo in there. Okay?
Okay.
And then kind of while things are damp, I'm just going to start putting in like little hints of foliage. So I like to keep it kind of like a triangle shape. It's going to bleed out. It's going to fuzz a little bit, but I'm not mad about that because that's what we want it to do. We want it to appear like it's out of focus and we can't quite see what's happening, you know? If you need to switch to a smaller brush because we're painting so tiny, please feel free to. So I'm going to switch to like a round 2. If you want to try and shape your trees, you can, but just like remember that what you're painting on is pretty damp. So it might just fuzz out anyway. And if it's not like fuzzing out as much as you want, you can help it. You just take like a damp brush and just kind of go along the edges and help it move around. Say, come on, little color. Move around for me.
Come on, little fella.
Come on, little fella. Just like that. Notice that it's like uneven. There's different colors. there's going to be some hard edges and funky textures. That's okay. Remember, this is all in the background. So we're going to layer on top of it so it's not a huge deal. Now we're going to let this dry. I'm going to use my heated craft tool. And as this dries, you're going to see the salt work. So right when you put salt into a wet area, it doesn't do anything right away. So you might keep adding salt being like, why aren't you doing anything? But salt actually doesn't really become apparent until your paper dries. And what salt does is it basically pushes the pigment away from the salt. Or like the salt itself soaks in the pigment right like then. And so right around the salt, it's like empty. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It just creates this really cool texture. Okay. Now, we're on step 3. We're like halfway done with this painting. You guys are doing great. Now I'm going to put in my foreground trees. Now these trees are going to be sharper. That's why I'm making sure that my paper is dry. And I want them to be a bit darker. And then that way, like that focus goes to the foreground trees and they pop out at me because they're darker than the background trees, okay? So I'm going to mix indigo with some Q gold. And that's going to give me like a really dark green. I'm going to use my liner brush for this. I'm going to do one tree kind of hanging out right here on the left-hand side. I'm not putting it directly in the middle. I'm going off to the left. And I'm going to have it be taller than my foliage line. The trickiest thing is making these straight, but just do your best. And then I'm going to do a couple more foreground trees, but they're not going to be as tall as my main one. This is my main one here. So I'm going to do a couple right here. And let's do one over here. Okay. Now, after I put in my trunks, if it's helpful for you, you can put in some branches. This is just a good way for you to remember kind of the overall shape of your tree. Notice that they get shorter as I move my way up, and then that way I keep my triangle shape for my trees. Or if you're like me and you're just like, I thrive in chaos, you can just like start going.
Just go right for it.
Just go right for it. And just try and keep an overall triangle shape. I'm just using the tip of my liner brush here because this is such a small area that if I tried to use like a foliage brush, I don't feel like I would have as much control over it because of how thick like the edge is. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do a little something there. Now I'm going to do this guy to the right. Remember, it doesn't have to go all the way to the edge because we're doing kind of like an unfinished edge here. And also there's nothing wrong if you wanted to like stylize these trees. You know what I mean? Like have them be more illustration and like do like swoops or just do like roundish shapes. Like it's okay. You can do whatever shape you want. I like to use the tip of my liner brush and just do dashes that overlap. So on this tree here that has a frame, I follow the frame and then I also fill out the middle. But notice that I am lifting up my brush a good amount because that kind of lets the light in between the trees and creates a less dense tree. And then you also have to check to make sure it's kind of even. Now, that area, white area right here is probably too white, so I'm going to fill some of that in. There we go. Cute little tree.
Perfect.
Now we're going to do our shadows. It might be a good idea to let your trees be a little bit dry before you do this part so you don't accidentally swoop some green into the snow. Because I'm going to use like a blue-gray color for the shadows on the trees just so there's like some grounding on the trees. But if my trees are wet and I take a damp brush and accidentally touch that, all of this dark green is just going to bleed right into that snow.
The other fix is to paint 5 of these at a time for all of your friends.
Oh, yes.
And you can just batch paint them, and as one dries, move to the next one. And by the time you get to the end, the first one will be dry.
Genius.
Thank you.
Okay. So now I'm going to take indigo. If you want to mix a tiny bit of phthalo blue in there, you can. And then mix some water in there. We want this to be a lighter value than what we did the sky. And then I'm just going to use my round 6 and kind of swoop at the base of the tree. So I'm going to have some going to the right. And then these guys up there, I'm going to have it kind of swooping to the left. We'll put a little bit of shadow here. And then depending on how much white area you have underneath your trees, you can do a couple more swoops like in the foreground here.
So cute.
Isn't it cute?
Yes, it's so tiny.
Just a few little like do is all you need.
Love it.
Trying to decide if that was too dark, but I'm just going to go with the flow.
I think it'll dry lighter.
Oh yeah, it always does. Good point. Good point. Okay, you don't want to overwork it. So like leave it. Like stop.
Okay.
What you're doing, stop. I'm just kidding. Okay, now we're on our very last step. We're just going to splatter some snow. Now, this is where it's completely up to you how you want to adjust this painting. Like, it would be so cute to throw in a moon, or maybe you put lights on your trees, or maybe a tiny gold star if you have a gold pen or some good gold paint. For me, I'm just going to do some snow splatters.
I think a teeny tiny bleed-proof white snowman.
Oh my gosh, that would be so cute. So I'm just going to take my round 6. I grab some bleed-proof white. I'm going to do a test splatter on my palette. Or a scratch piece of paper. Probably would be better to do a scratch piece of paper so you don't ruin the paint on your palette. But you know me. I'm just going to go for it.
We're fast and loose over here.
Fast and loose over here. So when I test this, I'm basically seeing how big the splatters are. If they're too big, then that's going to completely change the perspective of my painting and create big blobs on my paper. So I want them to stay fairly small. That's a good size. So then I'm like, yeah, let's go for it.
Boom.
That's
done.
it.
She's done.
She's done. And some of you might be wondering, well, what about the salt that you put on there? Like, what do I do with that? So something that I do when I feel very confident that my painting has dried is I like scrape it off using anything. Usually I use like, yeah, I'll show you. Like just using the bottom of a tube of paint works fine. You just want to make sure your painting is dry so you're not smearing any paint. Or you can just leave it on there. It's really not that big of a deal. Okay. Look how cute.
It's so cute.
Isn't it so cute?
I love it.
Should we put it in the frame?
Yeah.
Okay. This was the last one we painted. We did this darling cute little mushroom. I love it so much. But I wanted to give you guys some winter projects. I also did a deckled edge on this sheet of paper. See how it's kind of uneven here? That's called a deckled edge. If you guys want me to show you how I do that, just comment and let me know, and I'll be happy to do that. Here it is. And I love the unfinished edge on this.
Yeah, it's very cute. There's something satisfying about a taped edge, but also deckled.
Yeah, a deckled and like this cute unfinished edge. I'm going to move it down just a tiny bit. Stunning.
It's perfect.
Isn't it so cute?
Love it.
I love it so much. And then here you can see this was the one with a little bit larger frame. And I also switched out the ribbon color on this one. I decided to go for like a forest green here. But look how cute they are.
Super cute.
Okay. That's it. That's our project. I can't wait to see how yours turn out. They're darling, and I hope that this gives you kind of permission to play and try these tiny little scenes. Again, it's been what? 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Like, you guys can absolutely do this. The worst thing that can happen is you got to throw it away and spend 15 more minutes painting. Like, that's not too bad. If you need these ornaments, I think you can find them at letsmakeart.com.
Hopefully.
Thank you guys so much for painting with me, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.